All right, guys. I was asked about several different channels on YouTube and Instagram, email, what would be my favorite rule set? And I actually have one. My brother and I, we created this way back in the day, like maybe like 2003, when we were hosting grappling tournaments in South Florida. This is back when Naga and Grappler's Quest were a very big deal. And before IBJJF was getting into the no-gi scene, we were doing no-gi tournaments using Naga rule sets under Kip Kohler. And at one point, we decided to break off and make our own rule set based off our experience and our background. And this is not the exact one. I've adapted it because I don't remember exactly what we had, but this is pretty close to it. And at least in spirit, it's the same. For right now, again, my creativity is very limited. I'm just going to call it Avellan Grappling rule set. And I'll explain it and talk through it. And as you can see, it's pretty detailed. I try to make sure I covered everything that I could. So for scoring, takedown, 2 points. A takedown is scored whenever both players are in a standing position and one of the players can force the other player to land on their butt, side of body, or back, or on their hands and knees, with the top player being behind the arms of the bottom player towards their back. The top player must maintain that position for at least 3 seconds. The referee will count the control time by moving his hand back and forward 3 times. If a player started on the bottom position and is attempting to escape by standing up, as long as the top man has control of them, the top player is behind the escaping player and has any grip connecting them, such as a body lock, a seatbelt grip, a tight waist grip, or some form of hip control with their arms, has a double leg or a single leg. There is no scoring for a mat return by bringing the downed opponent back down to the mat. Only once the bottom player breaks entirely free of the grips of the top player, thereby scoring 1 point escape, can the top player score another takedown, right? So, just updating this there. Takedown, as in double leg, hip throw, any type of trip, sweep. Criteria is, like I said there, as long as they're in their butt, their back, or on their side of their body, grounded, and you're able to stay on top of them for 3 seconds, that's a takedown. And the other criteria is if they're on their hands and knees and you're behind their arms. This is a wrestling thing, right? Like, because you could be on your hands and knees, but you could be controlling a double leg and you're sprawling on me. So we wouldn't call that a takedown. But once you get behind my arms, now I've lost that easy shot ability, and that we consider a takedown. Now we're moving towards back control. And then the second part of this was just clarifying that, if I take you down and then you come up and I still have you with a back body lock and I put you back down, I don't score more takedown points because I didn't really, release control of the takedown until you're able to break hands and go into a neutral position. So that's just to be clear there, right? Now, this is pretty standard. I think in most grappling tournaments, they had this, so nothing revolutionary here. The second one, I think, is a bit more revolutionary, although not unique. It's used in wrestling now. It's out of bounds, 1 point. If a player is either pushed out of bounds or steps out of bounds willingly, their opponent will score a point. To be scored out of bounds, the player must be completely out of bounds, having no part of their body touching the designated mat space internal boundary. If a takedown sweep or any other technique causes one player to be out of bounds, but the other player is still in bounds while they're connected to each other, the match will continue. For example, a double leg takedown that results in the opponent being out of bounds, but the offensive player has his feet within the designated mat space. The 3 seconds of control time must still transpire before the score will be awarded. Once scored, the referee can stop the match and restart it in the center from the same position. In that situation, no out-of-bounds points will be scored as the takedown was awarded and the referee stopped the match to restart. If in that same situation, the control time wasn't met because either the bottom player escaped out of bounds or both players moved out of bounds, then an out-of-bounds point will be scored for the last player to go out of bounds, right? So This to me is one of the biggest problems in IBJJF and ADCC, who's number one, right? Most of these grappling tournaments, wrestling and grappling is very difficult because we're able to move around a lot. There's no stalling calls, and there's a lot more threats. We have to worry about getting guillotined, kimura trapped, and all sorts of things. So it makes people a lot more gun shy. And since there's no stalling calls, people tend to dance around a lot more. It's a lot harder to wrestle somebody who doesn't want to wrestle with you. And a big part of that is that there's nowhere I can force someone to pin them. That's one of the beauties of the pit or the cage, right? Or the octabowl, is that we do now have a way of pinning somebody. But that's not practical for big tournaments and whatnot. And like I said, there are spectator issues with those boundaries. But out of bounds pushing solves that. Because if I know that I can get a point by pushing you out of bounds and I see that you're running away from me, I'm just going to push you out of bounds. Now, a lot of people are skeptical about this when you first tell them, like, oh, now it's going to become a sumo match. Not quite. Because in sumo, what you see what happens is that no one wants to get pushed out of bounds. So what they do, they have to push back. And now they're meeting towards the middle. And when people are close contact, that's when takedowns can happen. That's when wrestling actually works. So that's the whole point of this. It's not that we want to see people going out of bounds all the time. It's that we want to de-incentivize people going out of bounds. So they're going to have to circle in more, which is, again, proper mechanics for fighting. Or they're going to have to get tighter, which is going to allow for better wrestling exchanges and scoring opportunities. And like I said, we had a tournament using this, and there wasn't a ton of out-of-bounds points being awarded because people just avoided it. It's kind of like if I put a spike pit on the out-of-bounds area, you're not going to have a lot of people jumping into the spike pit. And giving a point, it is the same type of de-incentive. All right? And like I said, just for clarity there, if I did score a takedown, I can still score it, and I won't get the out-of-bounds point either if the referee stopped the match there, right, and restarted it. Now, this is another one that a lot of people are not sure about, but I'm telling you, this was very good for us. Escape 2 feet, 1 point. Again, this is just from folk-style wrestling in the U.S. If a player is in the bottom position already have been scored against for a takedown, sweep, or a guard pull, and is able to escape to their feet and break free of all grips, following the guidelines as for scoring a mat return, of the top player, thereby assuming a standing neutral position, they will score an escape 2 feet, 1 point. This is a big game changer because it incentivizes people to move, right? Like I said, that's the whole point of the rule set, is to incentivize movement, action, and going towards a finish. If I get taken down and I'm down by a point or 2 points, if I'm able to escape back up to my feet and get a point, I've, one, negated the effectiveness of the takedown if I was able to come back up. And two, I've promoted action in the match and movement because I didn't just stay put and just stay on my guard the whole time. So to me, it makes a lot of sense, and it allows for a lot more scrambles and scoring opportunities. So I definitely really like this escape to feet point, which I don't think anybody has in any rule set currently in grappling. So that would be, and again, we did this like 20 plus years ago, but this would be a revolutionary one on top of the out of bounds pushing, which I don't think any grappling rule set has either. Guard pull, 1 point. If a guard player pulls guard by either jumping into the guard, sitting into the guard, the position must be maintained for 3 seconds, which will be counted by referee through hand signals, at which point their opponent, the top player, will earn a point. If a flying submission was attempted as part of a guard pull, and the guard pull will not score until the submission threat has been cleared and the top player is able to keep them on bottom for 3 seconds. If a player attempts to pull guard after their opponent initiates a scoring move, a takedown or a sweep, they will not score a guard pull. Rather, their opponent will score the move, a takedown or a sweep. This is pretty similar to ADCC. I think it's actually identical, except rather than giving a minus point, I'm just going to be giving a point to the opponent. I think it's just easier not to have to deal with negative points on a scoreboard. Just put everything positive. And what I like about this again, a lot of people hate the guard pull point because, oh, then I lose by the guard pull. Well, we have the escape defeat point. So if you pulled guard and you gave a point to your opponent, if I come back up, you get the point back, basically, because you're going to get 1 point. So, and it's fair because your opponent didn't really do anything. You ceded ground by giving them top position, but then you recovered the ground yourself. And which is what I like about this. You can take big risks like jumping, into submissions or trying to do a jumping sweep. And if you fail, you stand back up and you got your point back. So again, what this is doing, it's incentivizing movement, right? So now if you're an active guard puller, it works for you, right? The second thing is the submission threat, right? If I jump into a flying arm lock, it's not a guard pull until the arm lock is cleared. And I'm going to talk about this more later in the rule set, right? So if you didn't want to give away a guard pull point, if you went for a flying submission, once it's cleared, you stand back up, no points. And this also doesn't allow someone to try to, game it by the moment they get taken down, go for a guard pull. Just like in IBJJF and everything else, it's going to be whoever initiated the movement first. So if someone tried to take you down first, you're not going to get a guard pull. You're going to get a takedown for your opponent. Sweep or reversal. This one's going to scratch some people's heads, and I'll explain my logic behind it. If the bottom player is able to sweep or otherwise reverse positions to take top position and force their opponent to bottom position, they will score a sweep. The criteria for earning a sweep is the same as scoring a takedown. Position must be held for 3 seconds, and the positions for securing top are the same. This includes sweeps from guard, half guard, or any of the variants. Reversals are scored whenever a player is on the bottom of the dominant position and is able to reverse their opponent to take top position. Some examples include a player on bottom mount bridges and reverses to top guard. A player with their back taken with hooks is able to roll and get into top guard. A player from bottom side control is able to bridge and end up in top guard. Now this is different as far as the sweep side is pretty much the same. Any technique I can use to go from bottom position to top position will be a sweep if I land in some type of guard. Now, if I am able to reverse from an inferior position, like a bottom mount, a back mount, or a side control, or a kesekatame, and get back onto top guard, that's also considered a 2-point move as a reversal. Now, people are like, oh, that kind of de-incentivizes action. Well, not really, because if you got a guard pass, you got 3 points, or if you got a mount or a back mount, you got 4 points. But if you lost your top position and the guy bridged you, you kind of failed in controlling the mount there. And I feel it behooves to reward the top guy with the guy who escaped 2 points, because now there's an incentive for him to really work to recover his position, right? Because not only is he going to be in a better position to attack, but now he gets some points back on the board. So I also do this because it helps clear up ambiguity, because sometimes you have crazy scrambles and it's hard to know, like, well, who started in the mount, and then no, we make it just objective. Like, it doesn't matter how it happened. If a guy goes from the bottom position to the top position, he gets the points, right? So I think it makes it easier for referees or judges to score, because they don't have to worry about interpreting what was the first event that happened, because typically in jiu-jitsu tournaments, if I have the mount and I get bridged over, there's no points. Or if I have the back mount, there's no points. But sometimes you get into funky spots where, the guy almost gets the mount and then he bridges out, and then you're not sure how to clear it. In this case, you will be, because it's just going to be, it doesn't matter the starting position as much as what happened. We went from bottom to top into a guard. Next, guard pass, 3 points. And if the top player is able to pass the bottom player's guard and clearly secure a dominant position, they will earn a guard pass. Our definition of a guard pass is the top player's legs are completely cleared to the bottom player's legs and are not trapped in or between their legs or hips. The bottom player is resting on their side or their back. The top player has their chest on top or directly facing the bottom player's chest. The exception to this is the back mount with hooks or body triangle. Examples of guard pass positions: side mount, knee on belly, kesekatame, reverse kesekatame, north-south, mount, back mount with hooks, or a back mount with a body triangle. It's important to note that in A reverse seatbelt or octopus guard is not considered a guard pass by this criteria, as you neither have the back control or chest-to-chest control. Likewise, if you just finished a double leg takedown or controlling the legs, even though you've cleared the legs, you aren't passed yet, as you haven't moved up to chest-to-chest control. Once a player secures a guard pass, they cannot score another guard pass until the other player has either escaped to their feet or reestablished a guard. To reestablish a guard means the bottom player has some sort of body part, some part of their opponent's body, between their hips. This includes such positions as closed guard, half guard, butterfly guard, reverse closed guard, aka donkey guard, seated guard, open guard. Once the bottom player has maintained a guard for 3 seconds, the top player can score another guard pass. So I allowed some flexibility here for funkier guards like turtle guard and octopus guard. I use both of them a lot. And back in the day, I didn't consider them guards, but now that I've gotten really good at them, like they are actually really effective if you know how to use them. So you can still play those type of funky guards, or donkey guard as well. And we in this rule set, we consider it a guard. But I think the important criteria here doesn't matter if they're on their side, which ADCC has, which I think is a terrible rule because it just makes it hard to score on somebody. Sometimes you'll see someone mounted on their side and it doesn't count for a mount technically in ADCC rules. And it's silly because it's arguably a better position for the top guy when the guy is sideways. So I don't want to, I wanted this to reflect the reality of combat, the effectiveness of the position, right? Which is why I don't score the low reverse kesekatame like when you're on the double leg. Because while you are past the legs and hips, you're not in an effective position to attack really, right? Because you don't have that chest-to-chest control. He's probably pushing with both hands in your back. So you don't really have a position yet where you can do anything. That's also why I wouldn't score an octopus guard. His arms are behind yours and your arms are behind him. So you can't really effectively attack, right? We need to make a second movement, take a back or, do something to clear the arms before we're actually able to effectively use that guard pass position, which is the point of passing the guard. If I can't attack the guy off the guard pass, it's not really that useful then. So that's why I made those little caveats. And just like everything else, 3-second control. And there's no double scoring guard passes. That's why we have if I'm able to, I can only score again once my opponent has recovered their guard. Mount, 4 points. The mount is scored when a player is able to straddle their opponent's hips by getting both their knees and feet on both sides of the bottom player's hips and maintain control for 3 seconds. If their knees are not touching the ground, or their feet are in between their opponent's hips or legs, a mount will not be scored. A mount can be scored if the top player has their legs crossed under their opponent's hips or legs. I think this is pretty self-explanatory for my definition of a mount. As long as your knees and feet are over their hips and not entangled between their legs, you've got the mount. Whether they're turned sideways, or they're flat on their back, you're fine. If you, like I said, you could cross your ankles, body triangle them even from the mount, it's still a mount. You could be on a high mount, your knees are still over their hips, not entrapped, you're still in the mount. So I think that one's pretty easy. Back mount with a body hook or body triangle, 4 points. A back mount is scored when the dominant player is able to establish a chest-to-back connection while having either both of their feet hooked over their opponent's hips or by locking a body triangle over their opponent's hips. Same thing. I think this is pretty easy. I know for a while, body triangle wasn't counted, which I thought was retarded because it's a better position than the hooks. So yeah, if you want to control with both hooks or with a body triangle, either form of back mount is fine, and that scores you your 4. There's no rescoring like ADCC does, which I think is silly, where you can have the hooks take out and put a body triangle, then take off the hooks, put it back in and get no, you already scored it. So once you get the back mount, you have the back mount. And I talk about that a little bit later. Now, this is another unique aspect of this rule set, which is submission points. A submission point is scored whenever an opponent has a locked-on submission that has strong potential to finish. For example, an arm bar with a fully extended arm with elbow on top of hips, a heel hook with legs securely trapped between leg locker's legs, knee captured with secure grip on heel, a rear naked choke where the classic figure 4 arm position is established. Merely attempting a submission does not qualify for a submission point, nor does a weakest submission attempt, such as a guillotine from the weak side of a bottom half guard, crossbody, or a knee bar where the opponent used a figure 4 to protect their legs. There is no control time requirement for a submission point. As long as officials see a strong potential for the finish, it will be scored. Only one submission point can be scored for an active submission attempt. For example, if a player went for an armbar, locked out their arm, the opponent curled their arm back in, then they locked it out again, it doesn't score a second submission point. However, if they transition to another submission, like a triangle choke, and are able to get it secured into a strong threat, they can then score another submission point. Transitioning into different submissions will score more submission points as long as they're strong threats to finish the match. Right, so we're going from triangle to triangle armbar to kimura, right? And they're all strong, like threat of finish. Then we score the point. And I'll explain where the submission point, it's not a normal point. It doesn't count into the score. And I'll explain where we use it later. Mount and back mount combo scoring. Once a player has achieved the dominant position, they can only score it once during an active dominant control. For example, a player passes guard to side control and earns points. They then move into mount and score again. They then secure the back mount and earn more points. At this point, they have scored all the points they could for dominant positioning. If they transition back to mount, then side control, then mount, then back mount, no additional points will be rewarded. To score another mount or back mount, the bottom player would need to reestablish their guard with the same criteria as guard pass scoring. Right? So there's no like gaming the scoring system as far as like, oh, switch from mount to knee and belly or mount to like back mount like some systems have. Once you've attained the most dominant position and you've maintained dominant control, you can't just keep running up the score. The whole point of the dominant position is to get a submission. Stalling. Stalling from the feet will be called whenever a player is retreating excessively from combat. Examples of stalling from the feet include a player who backs up to every attack or advance from opponent, a player who avoids clinching and stays at an arm's distance and is not engaging opponent, a player that does not attempt any takedowns. Stalling on the ground will be called when a player is in a guard position, top or bottom, and is purposely preventing action or progression of the match. Examples include top player that is standing over an open guard that keeps from making contact, bottom player holding a body triangle from the guard and hugging their opponent, a top player that just sits back from guard and does not attempt to pass the guard or go for a submission, a top player that buries their head into their opponent's chest and stays in their closed guard to hold the opponent down without attempting any action. Stalling cannot be issued from dominant positions to either player. If a player has a mount and is just controlling the bottom player, not attempting to submit, it's up to the bottom player to make an effort to escape. Likewise, if the bottom player is content staying put in the bottom mount, it's up to the top player to open them up to look for the finish. Stalling calls will be issued in the following order. 1. First verbal warnings. 2. Second verbal warning. 3. Stalling called. 1 point given to the opponent. Stalling called. 1 point given to the opponent. 5th stalling call. 2 points given to the opponent. 6th call. Stalling point. 2 points given to the opponent. 7th, disqualification. For stalling from the feet, the call is going to be given after observing stalling for a period of 10 to 15 seconds. Subsequent calls, if more flagrant, can be given as observed. For stalling from the ground, a period of time will be from 20 to 30 seconds of observed stalling. Subsequent calls, if more flagrant, can be given as observed. Now, you can see there's a lot of opportunities given for stalling. That is not to make it weak, rather it's to incentivize the referees to use it more liberally, right? So if we have people just dancing around, that's why, especially from standing, short, 10, 15 seconds, right? You see someone like just dancing on the outside, not engaging, verbal warning, right? So we can give out 2 of them pretty easily without being a big deal and changing the, how the match outcome should have been. After the 2, though, then it starts to hurt, right? You start giving points to your opponent. You could give 2 points. You could potentially give up to 6 points to your opponent if you were stalling like crazy, right? And 7 calls would be a disqualification. So We are trying to promote action, right? We want people to constantly be moving, and that's why we have stalling calls. But we have to give them some teeth, and that's why I put specific guidelines as well. So, 10, 15 seconds from standing, 20, 30 seconds on the ground. Guard pass into mount or back mount, 4 points. If the top player passes guard by moving into mount or back mount with hooks and controls the position for 3 seconds, they will score 4 points. They do not earn the guard pass and the dominant position, so they don't get the combo. So if I went from open guard and popped over right into the mount, I get the 4 points. Or if I went into a guard pass and jumped right into the back, 4 points. This is pretty standard in most jiu-jitsu rule sets. Clean takedown, clean sweep, or clean reversal, 4 points. If a takedown, sweep, or reversal finishes in a dominant position and is held for 3 seconds, the top player will score 4 points. So if I do a double leg straight into side control, 4. If I sweep from my guard into mount, 4. If I go from bottom side control to top side control, 4. Right? And again, this is just based on objective reality, right? Like, where did I end up in? Right? That's what we're considering what is important. It doesn't matter if you were in a bad position. If you got into a great position, that's what matters, in my opinion, because you're actually able to use the position just as effectively. Ground position hierarchy. When scoring ground positions, it is important to understand the hierarchy of ground positions. The following lists from the top of the hierarchy to the bottom, where the top is the most dominant. Back mount with hooks or body triangle. Mount. Side control, knee and belly, north-south, kesekatame, reverse kesekatame, tops, turtle, seep. Oh no, that's not, yeah. Let's take that one out. It should just be that. Fourth, guard and variants of guard. Closed, butterfly, half open, seated, rubber, etc. You can only score positions above your current position in the hierarchy. For example, if you pass a guard immediately into the back mount, you cannot score mount or side control by going backwards. Only if you end up at the bottom of the hierarchy in the guard can you begin scoring guard passes in dominant positions once again. Right? So just to be clear here, like let's say I was in someone's guard and I passed right into the mount. I can still score a back mount if I take the back, but I can't, get any guard pass points like by getting into side control. Right? So like I said, you can only go up the hierarchy and score. You can't go down. So technically, if you wanted to game the system to score as much as you can, you would pass the guard, into side mount, go into the mount, and then go into the back mount. But if I go from guard right into the back mount, even though I lose the potential of scoring more points, obviously I'm in one of the best finishing positions in the game. Right? And this is pretty standard for most jiu-jitsu tournaments as well. Nothing revolutionary here. Scoring immunity while attacking submissions. If a player is attacking with an active submission attempt, no points can be scored against them. Only when the submission threat is cleared can points be scored, which will require 3 seconds of control after the submission threat is cleared. For example, player A jumps for a flying armbar on player B. After a period of time, player B escapes the armbar. Player A quickly scrambles up to their feet within 3 seconds. In this scenario, no points are scored. A submission can be also used to evade scoring if strategically used. For example, player A goes for a takedown on player B. As player B is falling, they secure a guillotine choke. After a period of time, player A escapes a guillotine choke, but player B uses the opening to escape to the feet within 3 seconds. In this scenario, no points are scored as well. In neither of the above scenarios, the key would be moving out of the scoring position within 3-second control time needed to score. Likewise, whether it's a guard pass, a baseball bat choke on bottom side, or taking a down position, a kimura, or figure 4 arm lock from the bottom, as long as the player on bottom is able to control the submission, no points will be awarded until the submission is escaped and the position is held and controlled for 3 seconds. This scoring immunity is only for the submission attacker. The submission defender can still be scored on during a submission attempt. For example, player A is in close guard and locks in a kimura. Player B rolls to the back, giving the mount to attempt to escape the submission. If player A holds the mount for 3-second control, they will earn a clean sweep and score 4 points. All right, so the first part of this is pretty much like ADCC rule set, from my understanding, which is you don't score anything until the submission's cleared and you have to secure the control time. I like that. As it says, it incentivizes going for submissions without penalizing you and gives you a little leeway of escaping. I've used this myself in ADCC multiple times. And like I said, it makes it interesting. So the second part of it, I think, is a little different, which is I've seen a lot of rule sets that someone could have a submission and like mount. Like I see a lot with guillotines, and they won't score the mount, which I think is kind of BS. Like if I have a mounted guillotine, I have the best possible way of using the mount in a submission. I should be getting the score. And they don't do that. They wait until the guillotine is cleared, and then so they give submission immunity to both people, right? I think it should only be towards the submission attacker, not the defender. So that's why I made that caveat there. Dominant control time. Once a player scores a dominant position, a timer will keep track of the total control time the player is able to secure. This time will be used in case of a tie after a sudden death period. We'll discuss that later. We're almost at the end here. I know it's a lot of stuff here. I try to be very detailed. Fouls, eye gouging, biting, pinching, fish hooking, any orifice, including oil checking, spitting, direct pressure over the trachea. This excludes chokes because, to be clear, all chokes put pressure on the trachea, right? Direct pressure over genital area. Insulting gestures and language, spiking an opponent on their head, which means purposely directing the opponent to the head. If I do a big suplex or double leg slam in one motion, that's not spiking. But if I pick the guy up and then turn him so that I can put him right on top of his head, that's spiking. Violating any official command or instruction, striking any form of strike, including a slap, punch, knee, elbow, kick, or headbutt. You can place a hand, foot, elbow, hand, or knee on the opponent and push forcefully, but you can't snap it. Head snapping is okay, which means your hand's already on their head or neck and then you're pulling down forcefully. Slapping is not, pulling back and then just smacking. Using a crossface is fine, but clotheslining with your forearm to set up a crossface is not. Okay, so again, same thing. If I place my forearm on their cheek, I can then start pushing forcefully. I can't just open up my arm wide and clothesline them, right? Foot sweeping is fine, but using a leg kick and calling it a foot sweep is not. And man, there's a lot of this in jiu-jitsu. You see people just straight out calf kicking. It's like, no, like foot sweeping, it's beautiful because you need good timing. If I'm just freaking throwing a leg kick, you're going to be called on that. Posting on the head is fine, or shoulder. Palm striking is not. Again, we can post. I see some people, especially in wrestling, do this where they just pretty much stiff arm you and they're like palm striking you. Like, again, not the same thing. Small digit manipulation, grabbing a single toe or finger and twisting it or pulling them back, not allowed. You have to grab at least 4 digits if you're trying to break a grip and control them. Fouls will be called whenever they're observed. 2 warnings will be given at first, followed by point deductions, and finally a disqualification in the shorter order shown below. First foul is a verbal warning. Second foul, verbal warning. Third foul, 1 point given to opponent. Fourth foul, 2 points. Fifth foul, disqualification. However, if a foul is done flagrantly, the official can disqualify the player immediately. For example, a player from the bottom mount purposely reaches for the opponent's eyes in an attempt to eye gouge him. That would be grounds for an immediate disqualification. Right? So the warnings are for people who are making innocent mistakes but just being clumsy. But if you try to purposely eye gouge somebody or, kick them in the nuts or something like that, you'll get DQ'd on the spot, right? Now, as far as judging, if the time limit for a match has expired, the player with the highest score will win if no submission was rendered. If there is a tie, then the player with the most submission points will win. So if we have like a 4-4 score, the person with the most submission points wins. So the submission points we are using as a tiebreaker. If there is still a tie, then there will be an overtime period that's half the regulation tie period. If the overtime period ends and there's still a tie with both of those criteria in place, then there will be a sudden death period that is half the time of the overtime period where the first score will win. If there is still a tie, after all of that, the judges will select the winner based on dominant control time. If that is also a tie, then it will be based on effective aggression, mat control, and the player that worked to finish the match the most on a judge's or referee decision. With this criteria, like I said, we generally get the players to decide the match, which is what I want. I don't want to have a referee pick the winner. That's why I've made it so hard to get there. Right? Normally, when we have, like, what we found is that there were very little overtimes when we did this system because there's so many ways to score. So it keeps a lot of points on the board, which is also funner for people to watch because it's not like 0-0 matches. Like the matches we did with a very similar rule set to this were high scoring. So it's funner to watch because we actually see points moving on the board. At time periods, 4 minutes for kids, 6 minutes for adults, pros 8 minutes. These are also short. Why? We're trying to incentivize action, right? If I tell you it's a 20-minute match, you're going to pace accordingly. If we do a 6-minute match, you're going to push pretty hard, especially when it's easy to score. And that's what this rule set's designed for, right? Like every other rule set I've seen makes it really hard to score. I'm trying to make it very easy, right? The easier the incentive is made for people to score points, the more likely they're going to take the risks. So is this a perfect rule set? Probably not. And I might be missing some things here. I should add this. Right? But if you have any gripes with it, you like some things about this, let me know. Put a comment there. I could also do a video with somebody just demonstrating some of the points if there's anything you guys find that is confusing. But in my opinion, this would be a much better rule set than any of the scoring rule sets I've seen now, right? I'm talking about ADCC, IBJJF, those type of things. I don't think they have good rule sets. And that's why, like, and who's number one, although they don't really do scoring, is more like judging, it kind of suffers the same problem. Like they have some of the most boring matches, in my opinion, just because there's so many out of bounds and a lot of bad wrestling. I think that would be fixed if you had scoring. That said, PGF for a submission-only format does really well, right? And I really like it, and it's proven in this 8th season how exciting it can be. However, I think there is a catch there, which is that it works in the format they have it where they're doing a season, right? And like the incentive is the submission gives them points to go into the playoffs. I don't think that works as well outside of that format, because now if we're doing a 8-man bracket, if you don't get the submission, how do we advance people into the next match, right? Like we have to pick a winner. And like in their system, I think on the playoffs, they're going to be doing EBI overtimes, which I hate the EBI overtimes. I understand in the submission only format, it kind of is, their hand is a little bit forced at the moment. But I have ways of countering that. Perhaps that's another video. I'll give you a quick idea. In my opinion, EBI overtime, you should only get positions to start from that you've got in the match. That changes things a lot, right? Because being gifted a back mount is really nice, and especially if you're a back mount specialist. But if you're never actually able to get a back mount in real combat, it's kind of pointless. So I feel like you should only be able to get a starting position that you're able to attain during the course of the match. That would make the match more interesting, because now if I wanted to start from back mount, I can't just wait the regulation period and then jump into the back mount and stall out basically the 10 minutes. So then when I go into the EBI overtime, I'm already fresh and ready to go. Like, no, I had to actually earn this back mount in the regulation before I can actually use it in the EBI overtime. And likewise, you could do any of these positions. Like they always do, armbar, start, or back mount, but I would just make it any dominant position you get, you can start from. And if you don't get a dominant position, that's an interesting one. I don't even know how you start them there. Maybe you let your opponent picks which position you get to start from, and you can pick like side control or something that is not that great for them. That's my twist in it. But like I said, I find that's a little bit harder to do. There is gaming of that, although that twist might change that quite a bit. But for conventional scoring, which I think is more practical for like big tournaments, not like showcase events, like professional events like PGF is, I think this type of rule set would be great. And I think like ADCC and whatnot, this would be a better use of rules. It would eliminate a lot of stalling. Matches are shorter, and like I've been telling you guys with CJI, like We don't need the longest matches ever. What we need are exciting matches. And what I've seen, exciting matches usually are shorter, not longer, right? Just by the reality of combat, like or in athletics. I can't perform at the same pace for 20 minutes that I could at 6. Like if you see someone gunning it for 20 minutes, man, if you put them in a 6-minute match, they're going to be going like a fucking tornado. So quality of effort is better than quantity, in my opinion. And that's what this rule set looks to do. Anyhow, let me know you guys' thoughts on this. And if you guys want clarifications on anything here, let me know. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified of all of my latest videos on YouTube. But really the best place to find all my content is my website, davidmma.com. You can register for free and get access to 4 free courses, including Kimura Fundamentals, Essential Half Guard Kimura, Essential Half Guard Passing, and much more.